Uh, uh. Good morning.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Morning Deuce with Davis Spindle. Happy Wednesday. Keeping the ball rolling. How is everybody's week going? I hope it's going great. So, some big stuff happened last night. Ted Cruz dropped out of the 2016 race for the Republican nomination. And what a strange, mystical, magical ride it has been. I mean, Ted Cruz is one really weird dude. It's just even kind of remarkable that he even got as far as he did. I mean, there were just some unreal quotes that came out about him. Lindsey Graham, one of the other senators, I think his quote was that he has no friends in the Senate and that if he dropped dead in the middle of the Senate floor, no one would try to help him or even stop the meeting. I mean, there were some crazy quotes in there. And then the whole, thing about Ted Cruz maybe having, 5 mistresses that was spread was just mind-boggling because if you've ever seen him try to interact with his own wife or any other woman, it's really strange. He, tried to kiss his wife the other day. It was really awkward. He sings to her show tunes on the phone, and they're really bad and very strange. He tried to hold Carly Fiorina's hand and raise it over his head in a moment of triumph, and it was like a triple grab to even get it felt like a mother forcing a 9-year-old boy to hold her hand while they cross the sidewalk, and he's in front of school, and he's like, no, Mom, I'm in front of my friends, I'm gonna be cool and walk by myself, and she's grabbing on, being like, you're gonna hold on to my hand. That's what it felt like. This was the guy that was supposed to have so much swag that he had 4 and 5 mistresses. I don't see it. Today during his campaign suspension address, he accidentally elbowed his wife in the face 2 or 3 times. I mean, he's just so awkward. I mean, when you're being compared on the internet to the Zodiac Killer, and even though the Zodiac Killer, that whole thing happened before you were born, you know you're a weird dude. So the whole mistresses thing was just the most out of left field thing I've ever seen. There's some epic quotes. That high school video came out of him that was what are your aspirations for when you grow up? And he said he wanted to be in an adult film, and then he said, other than that, power, money, and world domination, which is a pretty epic video to have on the internet of the 18-year-old version of yourself. Also, one of his biggest detractors was his college roommate, his freshman year college roommate, who literally just took to Twitter and continually throughout the entire campaign just talked a lot of crap about him. So despite all of that, he somehow managed to make a pretty deep run at this whole thing. But he's out, so R.I.P., pour one out for Teddy Ballgame, or Lying Ted, as Donald likes to call him, which is pretty crazy that Donald Trump just randomly assigns nicknames like that to other politicians, and we kind of let it go. He says Lying Ted and Crooked Hillary. But could you imagine maybe if Ted Cruz called Donald Toupee Trump or something like that? I don't think we would be cool with it. I feel like society would be no, only Donald can call people nicknames. And somehow Donald Trump would spin that to be he's just doing it to try to catch me in the polls. I do nicknames, now he does nicknames. Everybody's doing what I'm doing. Make America great again, build a wall. So I guess you can't really just rip off nicknames now that he already kind of cornered the nickname market. But yeah, what a snowflake Ted Cruz was in the spectrum of American politics and running for president. But that snowflake has dried up, and it looks like now the Republican Party has decided they're going to essentially let Trump get all the delegates he can get so that they can unite behind him as the Republican nominee, which is the craziest thing in the world because everyone within the party hates him. but the idea of their party winning is so important, even if the person who represents them everyone hates within the party leadership, they still are, now they're just going to fully back him. So that's a crazy move. That's a crazy move to me, to be a leader in this party and then just completely and utterly not support the guy who's going to be your nominee, and yet the whole party has to turn and like blindly support him. I'm not sure how it's going to work. I mean, can the public momentum carry him to the White House, even if the leadership within the party is probably not going to work as hard as they would if their candidate was someone they genuinely supported? Who knows? It's a mystery, but Ted, you gave us a lot of great internet moments, a ton of great internet memes. Nothing like quite as good as the recent one in Indiana when you had a guy measure a basketball hoop to show that it was 10 feet just like it is in New York and all across the country, and it was supposed to be this great metaphor. And you went to the Hoosiers gymnasium that was like so famous, and you called it a basketball ring instead of a basketball hoop. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is getting an endorsement from Bobby Knight, the most famous coach in Indiana basketball history. It just seemed like that was what was happening at every turn for Ted Cruz. Like every time he had a moment to do something of relevance, like, oh, I'm going to measure the height of a basketball hoop, but not call it a hoop and look like an idiot. And meanwhile, on the other side of the fence, we see Donald Trump has somehow gotten Bobby Knight on his team. Like Trump card played same day. So I don't know. No pun intended, but Trump card was played. So it's over, Ted. I mean, what a run. What a run. So that's kind of what we're thinking about. It looks like the field might be set. Two of the least liked politicians that I can ever remember are the nominees for both parties. And that's just like a general thing. Like both their approval ratings are really low across the board, yet somehow have record numbers of votes to support them. I guess they're just really polarizing. Like you're either all in on Donald Trump or you just don't like him. You're either all in on Hillary Clinton or you just don't like him. And now the real competition is for all the don't likes, because Hillary supporters are loyal, very loyal to Hillary. And Trump supporters are incredibly loyal to Trump. But what about all the people who just don't feel like they like either of them? There's not a lot of middle ground with these candidates. I mean, I've seen all the numbers. I've looked at all the polls. I've been following for months and months and months. All the data analytics. There's very little middle ground. You know, that was what Obama thrived in, was there were not a ton of Obama haters during the time that he ran, especially in 2012. Especially in 2008, excuse me. And so he thrived off that. And that was always the tactic. Don't make people hate you. You know, you got to make sure you're the least hated. But now Donald Trump has played the villain card. Hillary sort of has this weird villain card going. And there's a massive amount of voters out there who just don't feel like they can support either. So it'll be interesting to see how these two future nominees go after all the people that hate them, because now they have to start winning the people that hate them. So that is your politically charged Wednesday, which I feel like is a little bit of a theme because Tuesday tends to be the voting in these primaries. But now the primaries have a tiny bit less meeting. So we'll see how things go on. I mean, California has relevancy just to see if Donald Trump can hit the 1237 magic delegate number to win the nomination. But it's really not that much going on with the rest of the primary season. Now, finally, very late this presidential season, very, very late, these guys can start working on a national campaign. So there we go. There's your little political Wednesday morning. Little recap. T's and P's, thoughts and prayers to our boy Ted Cruz. And now it's time for part 2. So today, for part 2 of The Deuce, we're going to wedge together some music and some politics. So enjoy that. And the reason that we're going to do that is because May 4th is a pretty important day in terms of musical recognition in history because it is when the first ever Grammy Awards were back in 1959. So when we began to acknowledge some of the greater artists of our time in an incredible award show, but it is also the acknowledgement of one of the sadder days in history for America. It was a very strange thing that happened in 1970 on May 4th in Ohio at Kent State University. 4 students, many of you know the story, were protesting the Cambodia campaign by Richard Nixon, which was essentially an exit strategy out of Vietnam, moving troops from the Vietnam War to Cambodia before getting them out. And 4 students, along with a bunch of students were protesting. And the Ohio National Guard was called in, and 67 rounds were fired off into groups of unarmed students, and 4 of them died. 9 others were injured. Some of them weren't even protesting. And it blends together the music and the politics because Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, the incredible folk musicians, wrote an amazing song called Ohio that came out of that moment. And it was just about, like, you know, what are we letting happen to us? Like, we're protesting against our government and they're fighting back, and eventually it's just like, how can we continue to let this go on? Like, what else can we do? We have to rise up against this. And I think there is sort of that crazy feeling going on right now in American politics. Like I said, you either love someone or you hate someone that's left in the political campaign. And that's causing, protests in different parts of the country, on both sides of the campaign that are really intense. And we've had that over it's a tradition within America, our ability to protest. And when it goes wrong, like it did in Kent State that day, it causes a movement. It causes a change a lot of times. And this did. 4 million students went on strike. There were massive protests all across the country. It was a major deal after that. And it was a really big moment for the protest against Vietnam. And it created, an incredible song about an incredible band back when a lot of popular music was sort of reflecting maybe some certain things that were going on in society. Whereas now and maybe I sound like an old curmudgeon, but I feel like sometimes popular music now is just reflecting whatever struggle the artist is going through, where it's not as necessarily reflective at times. There are great examples, but this generation of the 60s and 70s is known for singing about, the larger struggle that's a little bit more outside the artist, a little bit more of a snapshot of what's going on in culture at that time. And so, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, all well-acclaimed musicians, kind of rode that political inspiration into some pretty incredible songs at different points throughout their career, and that song, Ohio, is one of them. So, out of difficult situations, you might be looking at the presidential campaign, feeling like you have no one who you want to support, but there's always a place for your voice to be heard in some type of way, and out of difficult situations, change can happen. Whether it's through art or through some type of movement, I do believe that making your voice heard however you can is an important thing to do. So that's your inspiration as we wipe it clean. Normally we finish with Roses by Outkast. But today, in honor of what I just said, we'll play a little bit of Ohio on the way out here. Only a couple seconds because otherwise they'll try to pull it down from YouTube. So we'll play a couple seconds of that. And you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I'm out.